Episode 5 of A Virtuous Business begins with Jong-suk awkwardly watching as Song-soo surprises Miwa and acts all lovey with her. Jong-suk follows them back home, where it turns out Inte has allowed him to stay there until he's hired again. With him and Miwa under the same roof, that spells bad news. Song-soo promises to be in touch and explains that he wants them to get back together again. Jong-suk is distracted by this, and after messing up Minho's breakfast, he asks his mom for a favor. He wants some clay and some snacks, which she agrees to. Jong-suk is okay with this, but she realizes she's misplaced her purse. Turns out she left it in the car with Dahyun, who keeps hold of it. Now, there's no love lost between Dahyun and Song-soo either, especially as he happened to overhear the pair talking about getting back together. Song-soo chews gum, but Dahyun simply calls him trash, pointing out that he's littering. He shoots daggers at him and Song-soo eventually walks away. Dahyun, meanwhile, hands back the purse to a very grateful Jong-suk. Jong-suk feeds back the survey results to the team. They have a good idea of what the most popular products are, but as vibrators are quite high on the list, they need to find a way to target new customers. The key here could well be the chairman's wife, and if they can win her over, it could help their business given all those beneath her would be inclined to look too. Ji-hui is confident this is the right move, but her husband, Won-bong, is not so sure. He's proper pessimistic about the whole thing and doesn't think they have a snowball's chance of this. Jong-suk is similarly optimistic and she tries to find a way to make this work. She speaks to Seo-yeon, who suggests they use misery and misfortune as a way of connecting with Miss Hyo. The plan is put into action and all the group work to start spreading some rumors. Ji-hui is the guinea pig here, of course, and Hyo Youngja falls for it hook, line, and sinker. Ji-hui goes all in with how her husband acted like a beast after seeing her in sexy underwear, and just like that, the rest of the gang show and it all works to plan. At the real estate shop, Hyo agrees to pay for all the underwear, just to help Ji-hui out, of course. At the police station, it turns out Dahyun has a burn scar up his arm. The chief ends up seeing it and asks about it, but of course, Detective Na tries to one-up him by discussing his own woes. A cut on his side, thanks to school kids. Dahyun does think it over and remembers his chat with the nun last episode. It turns out there was a big fire in the nearby neighborhood and this woman picked up the babe and promised to find him a new family. His savior was Catholic and wearing a wooden rosary ring. She also had a ticket to Jeonj and seemed to be a local there. This explains what Dahyun is doing, as he wants to try and find his mom. That night, after a successful plan together, the ladies are shocked when they find out Chairman EOM is actually messing about with another woman. It's not Hyo, who was reprimanded by her husband for dressing up earlier in the evening. He then left to see this other woman, in a heartbreaking turn of events. It turns out that he's actually had affairs before, so this isn't the first time he's done it. However, there's a very surprising reaction when Miss Hyo comes out from the real estate shop. She boasts that the product was unbelievably effective and she never slept a wink. She decided that she's going to let the other women from the club check out the products too. The others feel really bad though, given they know that she's lying. Jong-suk knows this is her coping mechanism and obviously empathizes with her plight. You see, as Jong-suk's mom explains, she didn't want to get branded with the scarlet letter of being a divorced woman. She knew it would follow her everywhere, and this gives Jong-suk a lot to think about. Back home, Ji-hui shows off a sexy red slip to her husband, whom she encourages to head home at lunch with big news. He earlier said he'd wear the red dress if they sold products to Miss Hyo, and of course, with the chairman's wife buying the underwear, he makes good on his promise, at least in visions anyway. In reality, he struggles to unbutton his shirt, but it's enough for Ji-hui to change her mind and simply stick with a stern warning for her husband. Back at the station, we learn that there was a serial arsonist at least 30 years ago which may or may not be connected with Dahyun. Dahyun immediately looks through the cold case files and seems to find a connection. That afternoon, Inte has big news to tell Jong-suk. It turns out Miwa is pregnant. It's been 6 weeks and they've even picked up their first lot of baby supplies too. He likens it to a miracle, but Jong-suk knows that this may well be Song-soo's, but Mi-hwa warns that she can't be stirring things up because that won't be good for either one of them. This problem is only compounded further when Song-soo heads home that afternoon and decides to play with Min-ho. Jong-suk takes him aside and he immediately spins things and claims that he's the victim. Song-soo shrugs it off as a one-time thing and a mistake, but when he finds out Mi-ha is pregnant, he's visibly rattled but starts bad-mouthing Jong-suk's mom after, along with questioning her devotion to Min-ho. Eventually, he slips away without even saying bye to Min-ho, who's upset as he just wants them all to live together. It puts her on the spot, and she needs some time to mull everything over. Outside, though, she bumps into Dahyun, who has been drinking and similarly in a rough way. He's been drinking and points out that his investigating is taking a new turn, and he feels lost. Jong-suk is in a similar pickle and isn't sure how to approach this situation going forward. She's always been one to keep the family together, but after everything, she just needs to do right by Min-ho. So in the end, Jong-suk decides that she wants Song-soo to feel pain and remember everything he's lost. This is the last happy moment for him, and she decides she wants to get a divorce. So Jong-suk comes through in the end and decides to let Song-soo experience one last happy family moment before absolutely obliterating that, just like he did to her. Sure, it's a little petty, but it's damn effective and definitely gets the message out that she's not to be trifled with. The show has defiantly tipped the balance of power away from the traditional Korean male-dominated relationships to put the women in that position, but never to the detriment of making any of the males weak. A Virtuous Business has been a solid watch, and the big highlight obviously comes from that ending, but similarly the way the chairman's wife is handling her rejection. It's really sad to see her have to make excuses and claim her relationship is wonderful when really, she's pretty lonely and deserves much better. This is something that Jong-suk can, of course, relate to given Song-soo's infidelity. There's plenty to like with this one though, and we'll have to wait and see where this goes next.